The airplane cabin buzzed with the quiet hum of passengers settling into their seats. Overhead bins clicked shut as people stowed their belongings, and the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted from the galley. Among the passengers, Jordan, a young black woman with radiant confidence and a warm smile, adjusted her seatbelt. She loved to travel, always finding joy in exploring new places. Her weekend trip to celebrate a friend's engagement had her in good spirits, but she had no idea the next few hours would become a whirlwind of accusations, assumptions, and justice. A few rows ahead, a flight attendant named Marcy surveyed the cabin with a practiced eye. Her perfectly styled hair and crisp uniform gave her an air of authority. She prided herself on being efficient and thorough, though some might say she took her job a bit too seriously. Marcy noticed Jordan as she boarded earlier. Her bold yellow handbag, her effortless style, her unapologetic demeanor. Something about her had set Marcy on edge, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. It wasn't the first time Marcy's instincts had led her to suspicious passengers, or so she thought. The plane filled quickly, the final announcements played, and the engines roared to life. Jordan reached into her bag to pull out a book, preparing for a peaceful flight. As she did, she noticed Marcy's sharp gaze locked on her. Jordan brushed it off. Maybe Marcy was just doing her job, ensuring everything was in order. But as the plane reached cruising altitude, the atmosphere grew heavy with an unspoken tension. Minutes later, the drink service began. Marcy, pushing the beverage cart with brisk efficiency, reached Jordan's row. Jordan smiled politely and requested a bottle of water. As Marcy handed it over, her eyes darted toward Jordan's bag once more. Something flickered in her expression: suspicion, doubt, or perhaps something more insidious. The next moment was surreal. Marcy's voice, tight and formal, broke the hum of the cabin. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her tone drawing the attention of nearby passengers. "I need to check your bag." Jordan blinked, taken aback. "I'm sorry, is something wrong?" Marcy straightened, her voice gaining a sharp edge. "We've had reports of a missing item from first class, and I believe it may have been misplaced. Could you please open your bag?" A hush fell over the surrounding rows as heads turned. Jordan's cheeks flushed with a mix of confusion and anger. "Are you accusing me of stealing?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Marcy's response was quick, almost rehearsed. "I'm not accusing anyone, ma'am. I just need to check, as part of protocol." Jordan hesitated, her fingers tightening around her book. This wasn't protocol, and both of them knew it. "I'm sorry, but unless there's a valid reason, I'm not comfortable with you searching my belongings." Marcy's expression hardened, and her voice grew louder. "Ma'am, I'm asking you to cooperate. If you've done nothing wrong, there's no reason to refuse." By now, murmurs rippled through the cabin. Passengers exchanged uneasy glances, some pulling out their phones to record the unfolding scene. Jordan, sensing the eyes on her, took a deep breath. "I've done nothing wrong, and I'm not going to be intimidated. If you believe there's an issue, perhaps we should involve someone with proper authority." The standoff was palpable. Marcy's jaw clenched as she weighed her next move. Before she could respond, another flight attendant approached, concern etched on his face. "Marcy, what's going on here?" Marcy gestured toward Jordan. "There's been a report of a missing wallet, and I need to verify it's not in her possession." The male attendant frowned, glancing between Marcy and Jordan. "A report? From whom?" Marcy faltered, her confidence wavering. One of the passengers mentioned it." "Who?" Jordan asked, her voice cutting through the tension. "Who said I took something?" Marcy didn't answer, her silence speaking volumes. The moans grew louder as passengers began to question her motives. A man seated nearby chimed in, his tone sharp. "This seems unnecessary. You're singling her out without any proof." Marcy's face flushed, but she doubled down. "I'm just doing my job." Jordan locked eyes with her. "No, you're not. You're making baseless accusations because of your own bias." At that moment, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, We've been informed of the situation on board. Please remain seated as we address it." As the tension reached a breaking point, an unexpected voice spoke up from the first-class cabin. A woman, impeccably dressed and visibly irritated, made her way down the aisle. "Excuse me, but I believe you're looking for this." In her hand was a wallet, a sleek leather piece unmistakably belonging to its owner. Gasps filled the cabin as the truth began to unravel. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a turn no one saw coming. The impeccably dressed woman held the wallet high, her expression a mix of frustration and disbelief. She was clearly upset about the disruption. "This was left in the bathroom," she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I don't know why you're accusing this woman when the answer was right here." Jordan let out a slow, shaky breath as the weight of the moment hit her. Relief mingled with the sting of humiliation as every eye in the cabin shifted from her to Marcy. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Marcy's face flushed crimson, her confidence cracking. She stammered, "I was only trying to follow procedure." The woman from first class raised an eyebrow. "Procedure? Is your procedure to humiliate passengers based on assumptions? Because that's all I've seen here." Passengers murmured in agreement, some nodding, while others filmed the unfolding drama. The tension was palpable. Jordan felt her hands trembling as she clutched her book, trying to keep herself calm. She wasn't one to make a scene, but this was beyond acceptable. Her voice, measured and firm, broke the awkward silence. "I think it's clear what happened here," Jordan said, meeting Marcy's flustered gaze. "And it wasn't just about procedure. You assumed something about me the moment I stepped on this plane. You let your bias guide you, and it's not okay." Marcy opened her mouth to respond but faltered, her words caught in her throat. The male flight attendant who had intervened earlier placed a gentle but firm hand on Marcy's shoulder. "Why don't we step aside and discuss this in private?" he suggested, his tone leaving little room for argument. Marcy hesitated but eventually nodded, walking toward the galley with stiff, jerky movements. The other attendant turned to Jordan, his expression softening. "I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding, ma'am. Please know this doesn't reflect how we want our passengers to feel." Jordan nodded but didn't respond. She was too busy processing everything that had just happened. The woman from first class gave her a reassuring smile before returning to her seat. The cabin slowly settled, though the energy in the air remained charged. Jordan could feel sympathetic glances from her fellow passengers, but she kept her gaze focused out the window, unwilling to engage. As the plane cruised along, fragments of the incident replayed in Jordan's mind. She thought about Marcy's sharp looks, the immediate assumption of guilt, and the public nature of the confrontation. It wasn't the first time Jordan had experienced something like this, but the visibility of it all, being accused in front of dozens of strangers, left a deeper wound. Her thoughts drifted to her upbringing. Growing up, her mother had always warned her to be cautious, to carry herself in a way that wouldn't attract unnecessary attention. "You have to be twice as good, twice as careful," her mother would say. "Some people will see your skin before they see you." Jordan had spent years trying to prove those people wrong, excelling in her career and carrying herself with grace. But no matter how much she achieved, moments like this reminded her how quickly bias could strip away her humanity. The male flight attendant returned a short while later with a small gesture of peace, a warm cookie, and an apology. "Again, I'm sorry for what happened earlier," he said quietly, bending slightly to speak to her. "We're handling it. If there's anything else I can do to make your flight more comfortable, just let me know." Jordan forced a small smile. "Thank you," she replied, though her voice lacked enthusiasm. It wasn't his fault, but a cookie and kind words couldn't erase what had already transpired. In the galley, things weren't going as smoothly for Marcy. The lead flight attendant, a no-nonsense woman named Paula, had been informed of the incident and was less than pleased. She stood with her arms crossed, her voice low but firm. "Marcy, do you have any idea how serious this is? You can't just accuse someone without solid evidence." Marcy's defense was weak. "I thought I was being vigilant." The woman, she just seemed out of place. Paula's eyebrows shot up. Out of place? What does that even mean? Her tone carried a sharp edge, and Marcy shifted uncomfortably. Paula didn't wait for an answer. Listen to me carefully. This isn't about your instincts or suspicions. This is about treating every passenger with respect and fairness. What you did could have major repercussions for her, for you, and for this airline. Marcy nodded, her confidence thoroughly shaken. She wanted to explain herself, to justify her actions, but deep down, she knew there was no good excuse. Her mind raced as Paula continued to lecture her, the weight of her actions sinking in. Back in the cabin, Jordan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. She wasn't someone who liked to stir the pot, but the blatant injustice of the situation gnawed at her. She knew she had to do something, but what? Should she file a formal complaint? Speak to someone higher up? The idea of reliving the incident made her stomach churn, but the thought of letting it slide felt even worse. As the plane began its descent, the atmosphere remained charged. Passengers whispered to one another, some glancing at Jordan with looks of pity or solidarity. She could feel their stares but chose to focus on the view outside her window, the sprawling city below growing closer with each passing second. When the plane touched down, the seatbelt sign dinged off. Jordan remained seated, allowing the eager travelers to rush toward the exit. She needed a moment to collect herself, to plan her next move. But as she waited, a man from a few rows back approached her. He looked to be in his mid-30s, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. "Excuse me," he said gently. "I just wanted to say I'm really sorry for what happened earlier. It wasn't right, and I hope you know not everyone sees you that way." Jordan managed a small smile, appreciating the gesture. "Thank you," she replied. "It means a lot." The man hesitated before adding, "I got the whole thing on video, by the way. If you need it for anything, just in case, I can send it to you." Her eyes widened slightly. "You recorded it?" He nodded. "A lot of people did. It's the kind of thing that shouldn't just be brushed under the rug." Jordan thanked him, exchanging contact information as the last passengers filed off the plane. Her mind buzzed with possibilities. She wasn't sure what she'd do with the video, but having it felt like a small victory in a situation where she'd felt so powerless. As Jordan stepped off the plane, she glanced back one last time. Marcy stood near the galley, her face pale and her posture stiff. Their eyes met briefly, and for a moment, Jordan thought she saw something that looked like regret. But regret wasn't enough, not for what had happened. Jordan turned away, stepping into the bustling terminal with a sense of purpose brewing in her chest. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about standing up to a system that allowed this kind of behavior to persist. Whatever came next, she was ready. Jordan walked through the airport terminal, her steps steady but her mind racing. She could still feel the heat of the stairs, the weight of the accusation, and the raw embarrassment coursing through her. She didn't want this moment to define her, but it was impossible to shake off. It wasn't just about her pride. It was about the principle. She knew she couldn't let this slide, but she also knew navigating this wouldn't be simple. As she approached baggage claim, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the man who had offered her the video. True to his word, he had sent her the file along with a short note. "In case you need it. Take care." Jordan watched the video for a few seconds, her stomach twisting as the scene replayed. Her calm demeanor under pressure, the escalating accusations, the passengers' murmurs. It was all there, captured from a perfect angle. She tucked her phone away, unsure of what her next step would be. Outside the terminal, her best friend Carla was waiting. Carla's vibrant energy was impossible to miss. She leaned against her car with arms crossed and an expression that was equal parts concern and fury. As Jordan slid into the passenger seat, Carla didn't waste any time. "Okay, spill," Carla said, her voice sharp with protective anger. "You texted me about some drama on the plane, but I need details. Who do I have to fight?" Jordan couldn't help but smile at Carla's fiery personality, but the humor faded as she recounted the story. As she described Marcy's behavior and the public confrontation, Carla's jaw tightened, her grip on the steering wheel firm. "Are you serious?" Carla exclaimed, her voice rising. That's outrageous, in front of everyone. Oh no, we're not letting this go. Jordan sighed. I know, but what can I do? It's not like filing a complaint is going to fix the bigger issue. Carla shot her a look. This isn't just about filing a complaint. This is about accountability. You have a video, right? You can show the airline what happened. They need to know this can't happen again. Jordan nodded, but remained hesitant. The idea of reliving the incident, of putting herself out there, felt overwhelming. Yet, deep down she knew Carla was right. This wasn't just about her. It was about making sure no one else had to go through the same experience. Meanwhile, back at the airport, Marcy sat in the staff lounge, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The meeting with her supervisor had been brutal. Paula hadn't minced words, laying out the potential consequences of her actions. Disciplinary review, mandatory sensitivity training, and worst of all, the possibility of termination. Marcy's mind spun with regret and fear. She had worked hard to build her career, and now it all hung by a thread. Marcy replayed the incident in her mind, trying to justify her actions. She had thought she was being vigilant, doing her job, but the truth gnawed at her. Deep down, she knew her assumptions about Jordan had been influenced by bias. She had made a snap judgment, and it had backfired spectacularly. The memory of Jordan's call me at piercing words, "You let your bias guide you, and it's not okay," echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of her failure. As the day wore on, the incident began to spread. Passengers who had recorded the confrontation started sharing their videos online. Social media lit up with outrage, the hashtags #PlayingBS and #JusticeForJordan trending within hours. People from all over weighed in, sharing their own experiences with discrimination and demanding accountability from the airline. Jordan wasn't prepared for the onslaught of attention. She had barely made it home when her phone started buzzing non-stop. Texts, calls, social media notifications. Carla, ever the social media sleuth, quickly pieced together what was happening. "Girl, you're going viral," Carla said, holding up her phone to show Jordan a flood of tweets and comments. "This is bigger than you now. People are paying attention." Jordan's stomach sank. She hadn't asked for this kind of spotlight. All she had wanted was to enjoy a simple flight, not to become the face of a social justice movement. Still, as she scrolled through the messages, she saw an outpouring of support. Strangers rolling behind her, calling out the airline, and sharing their own stories of being profiled or mistreated. It was overwhelming, but also empowering. Later that evening, Jordan received a call from an unfamiliar number. She hesitated but answered, her voice cautious. "Hello? Miss Jordan Davis?" the voice on the other end asked. It was calm, professional, but with a hint of urgency. "My name is Michelle Parker. I'm with the airline's corporate office. I'd like to sincerely apologize for the incident that occurred on your flight today. We take these matters very seriously and would like to discuss how we can make this right." Jordan listened, her emotions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. The corporate representative seemed genuine, but Jordan couldn't help but wonder if this was more about damage control than true accountability. She agreed to a meeting, but made it clear she wasn't interested in hollow apologies or empty promises. As the days passed, the situation grew more complex. News outlets picked up the story, and journalists began reaching out to Jordan for interviews. Carla encouraged her to speak out, but Jordan remained cautious. She didn't want to be used as a pawn in the media's game, nor did she want her story to be twisted or sensationalized. At the same time, Marcy found herself at a crossroads. The backlash against her actions was brutal, both online and among her peers. She had never considered herself a prejudiced person, but the incident forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about her biases. She began to reflect on how her actions had impacted not just Jordan, but everyone on that flight who had witnessed the incident. As Jordan prepared for her meeting with the airline, she felt a growing sense of determination. She didn't know what the outcome would be, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let her voice be silenced. This was her chance to speak not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been unfairly judged or mistreated. The conflict was far from over, but Jordan was ready to face it head on.